Gary Neville enjoyed one of the most miserable managerial tenures in Valencia's modern history. But what happens if you move that same version of him to Manchester United on Football Manager 2016? What impact can he have there? Gary Neville as a player needs no introduction at all. He played 20 professional seasons with Manchester United, racking up 602 appearances and 21 trophies. On the field, he was exceptional. His brief managerial career, however, wouldn't be described as that. During his ill-fated 28 games in charge at the Mestalla, Gary would win just 35% of the matches he led the side. On paper, that doesn't sound too bad, but when you look more closely at his league form, it quickly becomes apparent why his reign ended so quickly. His side would win just 3 times in 16 attempts, leaving the side in 14th place. And if that wasn't bad enough, his most iconic performance in Valencia colours would be a 7-0 demolition by a prime Barcelona side. Thankfully, though, all of this is now a distant memory. For the season ahead, Gary will be in the dugout at Old Trafford, a club he knows from top to bottom, and more importantly, one where he actually has a grasp of the local language. It's a squad with plenty of familiar names, but nowhere near the quality of those which he appeared in himself. Their biggest acquisitions in the summer of 2015 were Morgan Schneiderlin, Matteo Darmian, and Memphis Depay. They'd also spend significantly on the purchase of Bastian Schweinsteiger from Bayern Munich. In reality, he'd only make 35 appearances at the club, as he endured an injury-hit spell in the Northwest. Maybe Gary can be the one to get better production out of him. The most talented player in the squad, though, is probably Wayne Rooney. Aged 29 now, his decline would actually begin in the 2016 season. For the first time in 12 years, he failed to break double figures in the Premier League. Overall, though, the 2016 season would end up being relatively successful for United. Although they could only muster a fifth-place finish in the standings, missing out on a Champions League qualification on goal difference, there was some redemption. On the 21st of May, they'd overcome Crystal Palace 2-1 in the FA Cup final, courtesy of a Jesse Lingard winner. But with Gary at the helm and his new 4-4-1-1 formation, let's see what he can do at the club. Matchday 1 of the new manager's reign would see Brendan Rodgers' Liverpool visit Old Trafford. It would be a tightly fought battle, but in the 84th minute, Memphis Depay would score the game's only goal, following some awful keeping by Mignolet. A week later, and another 3 points would follow. Wayne Rooney would quickly adapt to his new manager with a hat-trick against 10-man Aston Villa. After such a promising start, United would taste victory just 3 times in the next 10 Premier League matches. Chris Smalling would score the game's opening goal against West Brom. With just seconds remaining, the ball breaks down the wing. Saido Berahino puts it past a helpless De Gea. This would result in another costly 2 points being dropped. Whilst there hasn't been a lot to celebrate in Manchester over the last couple of months, they did enjoy a festive 4-0 victory over Arsenal. At the midway stage of the Premier League season, United were sitting in third, trailing leaders Chelsea by 9 points. Incredibly, Gary has a win rate of just 45% so far this campaign, but somehow is occupying a top 3 spot. Looking to build on the first 6 months of his managerial tenure, the United legend would be backed in the transfer window that winter, spending nearly 60 million on new arrivals. Samuel Umtiti would be their biggest outlay, joining from French side Lyon. In reality, since leaving Olympic, the defender's career has largely been on a downward trajectory. He'll be looking to make waves in Manchester. Elsewhere, along the back line they'd signed Mario from La Liga. The Spaniard has become a stalwart in Villarreal's backline over the last few years, and should be a decent alternative to Darmian. But let's look briefly at Man United's performance in other competitions. After a third-round elimination in the League Cup, the Champions League would offer another chance for glory. Drawn in a group alongside PSG, Borussia Mönchengladbach and Lazio, sitting in third place, the Red Devils would need a victory in the final group game to have any chance of qualifying for the round of 16. But that still wouldn't be enough. Agonizingly on goal difference, they were condemned down to Europa League football. In Europe's second-tier competition, Besiktas would be their first opponents. United would prove to be too strong for the Turkish giants, winning 5-2 on aggregate. Next up would be Italian side Roma. A hat-trick by Brazilian new arrival Luan would ensure a 3-0 victory in the opening leg at Old Trafford. But just like in 2018, Roma would launch one of the most unlikely comebacks in European football history. This time, though, it wouldn't be Barcelona who were victims, but Neville's United. 3 first-half goals, including that impressive volley by Totti, drew Roma level. A Daniel De Rossi winner in the 84th minute would mean elimination. Their FA Cup campaign would open with victories against Peterborough, Wolves and Southampton, setting up a 6th-round tie with their local rival City. Antonio Valencia would equalise 10 minutes after the opener, but City would prove to be too strong. Raheem Sterling's 65th minute winner would see them eliminated. With just a few months remaining in the Premier League season, United were looking to accumulate as many points as possible. But they still couldn't put together a convincing run of victories. A week after a 3-1 defeat to Bournemouth, they would strike back and pick up 3 points at Goodison Park. What followed was nothing short of a disaster, as the wheels truly came off. 1 league win in the next 6 matches, and Yunus Karbel's long-range strike extended Sunderland's advantage at Old Trafford. The match would finish 2-0 as the scrutiny on Gary's position increased. With the Englishman standing helplessly on the sideline, his defence would be cut apart again. Stoke City's record signing, Gianelli Mbula, was set free and beats De Gea with ease. Here are Manchester United's full season stats. In fairness, some of this squad performed pretty well. Antonio Valencia, Memphis Depay, and the 2 fullbacks all did a decent job. Wayne Rooney's 16 goals were also an improvement on his actual form in 2016. Personally, I think their best performer though would have to be Juan Mata. In all competitions, he'd registered 20 goals and assists, and seemed to adapt pretty well to his new coach. But where would United place in the table? It would be a 6th place finish. Whilst on paper that doesn't sound too dreadful, especially considering their more recent performances, it was still quite bad. 57 points would be their lowest total since the 1989-90 season, where they'd finish in 13th place. Compared with reality, they'd accumulate 9 less points, while scoring 9 less goals. Curiously though, they're actually defensively more solid, only conceding 29 under the new manager's stewardship. Like a decade ago, this truly was a squad built on defensive stability. But even that wouldn't save Neville's job. At the conclusion of the season, he and United would part ways. Just like in Valencia, Neville's reign in Manchester would prove to be brief. Despite the move to a more familiar location, his managerial fortunes didn't change. Now nearly a decade out of the dugout, I think it's pretty unlikely we'll ever see this legendary player leading another side in the future.